Hi, Stuart Turner here. Really pleased to welcome you to the Leadership and Lead podcast today. And for those of you who've not joined before, just to give you a little bit of context, this is a podcast that's aimed at leaders, business owners, founders, entrepreneurs out there. And we get a guest on board, someone who's in a similar position to yourself, maybe a bit further down the line on their journey. And we tap into their insights, some of the experiences that they've had, the learnings, and get some sort of quick steps that you can take away and build into your daily practice and start to see some benefits from. I'm really pleased to welcome James O'Sullivan today as our guest. Now, James is a really quality guy. He's an award-winning chief exec of an award-winning consultancy, Project One Consulting. So there's a lot there to tap into. There's a lot there for us to learn and benefit from. So I'll just pause there quickly and hand over to you, James. If you just want to give us a quick intro to your background, some of the journey that you've been on, and then we'll get cracking on topics today.
No problem at all. Mickey, Stuart, thank you for inviting me along today. It's great to be here. I don't know about the how good. I'm just going to share my story and let's see where the conversation takes us. So yes, I've been in this change and transformation world now for coming up on 30 years, which has gone by really, really fast. Some pretty big programs along the way, some pretty big transformations of some well-known organizations, which I've absolutely loved. But 10 years ago, I joined Project One, a boutique consultancy, so about 100 FTE, but a slightly different operating model to most in that we don't run a pyramid. We have a team of senior change leaders. So everybody with past 15, 20 years experience who sit at the top of those pyramids and run those programs, whether it's for the project and program management aspect, the change management aspect, or the control and governance aspect. So as you mentioned, Stuart, I'm now the CEO, been in role for 2 years. It's been an interesting journey. It's taken a bit of change, and looking forward to talking about it today and see where the conversation takes us.
Great. Well, thanks for that, James. And that leads us on to the very sort of start point that we want to get into. I mean, it's really interesting, the environment in which you work in, the structure. Something that comes up a lot with clients that I work with is they might be stepping into the chief exec role for the first time, or they're growing their team, or there's a challenge that comes with that. And one of the things that we really have to get to grips with is the difference that comes with that role. What is different about being a chief exec? And particularly in those early days, what do you have to stop doing? What do you have to start doing? What does that transition look like? And I just wondered, obviously you've been very successful at it and in a relatively short time. So what's the journey been like for you? What have those challenges look like?
Well, I think I'd start off by saying they're going to be different for everyone. And it's how you kind of go on that journey, or how you choose to go on that journey. I've obviously spent a lot of time in a variety of well-known clients over my career, and I've seen different approaches. I've seen different outcomes and different results from it. So I guess I had a lot to look at and watch and take the little best bits from when it came to kind of going on that journey myself. I think the second part, though, is I've been a program director for the bulk of my career. I then went into being a kind of sales director, if you want to put a generic title over the top of it, and then on to CEO. So in effect, I've had exposure to every part of the consulting industry. And I think that's invaluable, because I do think you've got to shape your own style. I'm not trying to replicate what my predecessor did in the same way as he didn't try and replicate what his predecessor did. Yeah, it's got to be you. It's got to put your stamp on it, your style and your personality. And it's not to say that any one of them is right or wrong. You've got to do what you feel is right. I think the key part that you touched on, though, is some of your, through generically you call them behaviors, have to change. So the biggest part I had to focus on was, if you think of both program director and sales director, they're both very, very red roles. And I'm a very, very red person naturally. Yeah. You can't really take red into being the CEO of a people business. There's elements of it. You can't just do away with it, but you've definitely got to move towards bringing out the blue side. And as you'd expect, therefore, the hardship is letting go. Hardship
Yeah.
is not just being down in the detail. The hardship is not just kind of like, all right, don't worry about it, I'll do it myself. It is learning to appreciate others that are there to do what you used to do yourself. And they've got to do that part their way, and you've got to do your part your way. It then sits into the wider context of every other role is pretty boxed in. Sales is sales, it's client relationships, it's number oriented. Delivery is very delivery focused. It's managing those teams, those pyramids. As a CEO, you're the veneer on the top, aren't you? You've got to know something about everything. You've got to understand your business inside out. You've got to be able to ask the right questions. But also, particularly in this market we're in, so if you think I became CEO in the summer of 2022, there or thereabouts, and from the start of the flat market, the market changed in January 22. And therefore, having a handle on the company is even more important, but also making those difficult choices, those difficult decisions, having those hard conversations, trying to eke out some of that detail that some people would, shy away from. That'll be kind of where I'd start, and, let's dig down into whichever bit you think is of interest.
And just on that, I mean, how have you been able to prioritize? How have you been able to identify those key critical decisions or focus areas that you need to concentrate on, and then obviously delegate or leave some of the other things to members of your team?
So I suppose I've built my career on being task orientated, and that hasn't changed. So as much as you can go red to blue, my underlying behavior is still task driven.
Yeah.
I think, as you said, it's focusing and prioritizing the ones that actually matter. So in any people business, any consulting business, at the end of the day, we need to have clients, we need to have customers, we need to deploy our team, therefore we need to have sales. And once we've got to that stage, and we have to deliver really, really well, keep the reputation high so that people continue to do repeat business and to refer you on. And therefore you can pick 2 or 3 very key metrics that the business is kind of anchored around. And the trick in some respects is not to get distracted. If you take, as I said, the last 2 years being a flat market, it'd be very easy to say, oh, let's go over here and look at that. Let's go and have a look at that. Let's go and have a look at that. Let's go and have a look at that. I'd actually say go the other way, which is work out what the basics are and do the basics really, really, really well. And that doesn't mean you take your foot off the gas. That doesn't mean you're not going to go and push really hard, but it means you're not being distracted by 10 things when only 3 things make a real difference.
If those 3 things are perhaps not going to plan, how do you, in your position, bearing in mind you're sort of standing out there alone, how do you keep yourself feeling strong and positive and confident? How do you keep that mindset going in that direction?
Yeah, it's not always easy. I guess that old adage of it can be lonely at the top is definitely true, because you don't have the same level of peers around you. Albeit we're all here, whether it's consciously, subconsciously, the phone does not ring as much as it would do if you're in another role further down an organization. You don't feel like you've always got a home. So if I think back to when I first became a consulting director, you've got your client accounts. You're sat, in their business. You know all of their people. It feels like a home. When you're the sales director, you've still got a sales team. You're going out, you're seeing, a lot of them as well as your own business, and then you feel like you've got a home. When you step up to the CEO role, you do become, in effect, a little bit of a baby kisser, aren't you? Because you're going everywhere. You're in a different place every single day, and everybody's really, really pleased to see you. But you're also thinking about, where am I going tomorrow? What have I got to do on the back of yesterday? And you're trying to also run the business as well as being out in the business. So it's a very good question, that mindset. I mean, I'm a pretty focused individual, and I'm always on. My brain does not switch off, even when I'm sat watching rubbish TV late at night. I'm always kind of thinking of what's next, what's on that list, what's the next task. I think you just got to be upbeat. I still have my down moments. I think a year ago, last November, so the end of that first kind of, pretty hard year, up place. And in some respects, the this market has actually been tougher than something like the COVID market, because the COVID market, as we had a real focus, it was like, how do we get out of this? This is a certain thing. Focus on delivering our part of that puzzle, and let's get this country, this world out of this problem. And therefore, there was one thing dragging everyone in that same direction. At the moment, we've just got a flat economic market around the world, and then from this, you've got to bring yourself back to the context, and the context is it's the same for everyone. The context, macroeconomics. It's about inflation. It's about the cost of borrowing. No one's going to start a massive, X billion pound or dollar program in this market, and therefore, you've got to put your mind into that place first. And then the important thing is obviously making sure that any message you're delivering to your team, whether it's on a one-to-one or team basis, is all centered around that. Here's the macro position. Here's our position. This is where we think the world is going to go. Therefore, we know when it will rebound and open back up again. But as you said, motivation, that's a challenge. Different people are on different journeys, different oscillations at different times. And you've got to be very cognizant of how you're feeling might not be how they're feeling, and vice versa.
And do you have like a network of support around you that you can go and offload and talk through some of those challenges away from, away from visibility of the team, and perhaps even, home life? I mean, some of the people I talk to often come to me because they don't want to obviously share any of that with their team, and also they don't want to take it home. So it's like, well, where do I go? And just often just offload, and then either validate that actually we're going in I can stick with it, or have we considered this? Have we considered, another option, and just talk through it. I just wondered if there's anything that you have in place that gives you that space to do that.
Yeah, I do. Is it as big as you'd maybe want it to be? No, probably not. And I think in life, there are people who are willing to listen to some of those conversations, and there are others who say they do, but they don't really. And you can work those out pretty quickly. Yeah. I guess I'm lucky. I've got Terry, my predecessor. We've worked together for over 17 years in a number of different organizations, and he is always, having been through it, I guess he's always willing to be there at the end of a phone or a quick journey to a pub. I mean, I've got other people in our industry, at different stages of their career, some of which have even sold and kind of moved on. But again, they're good sounding boards. I've got other friends who also run businesses of varying sizes and scales, and therefore, again, albeit we're not in the same industry, they understand the same challenges, the same underlying challenges running a business. And to be fair to the good lady wife, to Mrs. O'Sullivan, she is very good at listening to a certain point. As you said, it's not right. It's not really her wheelhouse to have to listen to ongoings of a business. Albeit she'll probably tell you she knows far more about our business than maybe I think she knows.
Okay. Right. You touched on something a minute ago around messaging, and that's another one that has come through a lot. It's taking that sort of busy mind and really articulating or crafting those really clear, concise messages that you can then share with your team and potentially customers, that gets everybody aligned and with the same sort of understanding. And it sounds really easy, but it's a really challenging activity to work through. And I know quite a lot of people really find that very difficult. Is that something that you find difficult, or is it something that's come quite easily to you?
Yeah, it's come quite easily. I've always done it. The bigger challenge is learning over years to have continuity and consistency of those messages over a period of time. If you programize this first, then we'll come back to the CEO thing. If you're running a 3-year program, there's varying reasons people give them names, but part of it is that you've got something to line up behind. You then have a picture that goes with it, and you can then follow the journey of that picture through the 3-year kind of period of time. you would put somewhere between 3 and 5 key messages at the start, and you would be just rinse and repeating where you are with those as journeys as you go. And in effect, in our world, my world, the way my head is wired, I do the same, sitting in the CEO role.
Yeah.
So in some respects, you will have some of the audience that will be like, oh, same topic, same topic, same topic. But for a lot of people, it's like, oh, thank God, it's consistent, it's consistent, it's consistent.
Yeah.
You're just taking them on the journey continuously. The worst thing I think I could possibly do would be every month come out with a different message on a different topic about, a different realism. Where's he going now? Jumping all over the place so that no one can kind of keep up or follow or actually know whether we did what we said we were going to do at the end of the last message. I mean, I think you've always got to show an element of realism. Or not for going out there and doing full on rah and the world is good, the world is great, isn't it brilliant to be here? If you're in a market like we're in at the moment, people are grown ups. We're dealing with we deal with grown ups. They've got their businesses to run. Therefore, have an open, honest, realistic conversation about whatever topic you want. It doesn't mean it has to be negative. It's just contextualizing, the situation, and then. In a lot of cases, it's what is the issue, what is the action we're going to do, and what is the impact it's going to create, and then you then link that back to everybody going off in their own directions, doing their part of the puzzle, they're doing something. Yes,
and I guess that feeds into the next topic, which is around building a culture of collaboration in the team. I guess it starts with those messages, and then getting everybody bought into that and aligned to that. And then obviously there's an accountability that goes with it, as in I'm going to go off and I've got my steps to take and I can feed them back to or link them back to the direction that we've just, we've sort of signed up to. Is that, how do you, and I guess to you in the consultancy with senior people all out in the field, that must be quite a challenge. How do you manage that?
Well, yes and no, because as you said, our team are made up from a cohort of an older age. They're all got years experience when they come to Project One. Therefore, you're not having to do the training elements that we've all been through, in our young years. Therefore, there is an automatic kind of element of people know what they've got to do, whether it's delivering a program, whether it's, as part of a sales team, a marketing team, a finance team. They know the part they're there to play. So really my role is the orchestrator, is to kind of really corral everyone. Now, the collaboration thing is an interesting part because, as much as we would all love to use the other podcast, a high-performing team, and they don't really exist in a lot of situations, and they don't exist all of the time. And so if you've got a team where 80% of the team are high performing, then you're doing really, really well. And there is always someone on the way up. There is always someone on the way down. And therefore part of the job in terms of collaboration and then on to kind of motivation is how do you make sure that it is best wired together and maximize the kind of the opportunity as it kind of presents itself. Now, I guess this is where you then drift back into that red behavior set. I'm not one to just leave people to it and hope that they all get on with each other and hope that they all collaborate. I'm more the type that would kind of sit there and kind of go, have you thought of this? Have you thought of that? Have you spoken to so-and-so? Have you brought that person in? Can you go and get hold of them? Can you go and work with them? So as I said, I see it more as an orchestration kind of role. And it's really, it's probably more for my benefit in terms of my own safety net, rather than kind of saying, I hope that happens. It's okay. I'll go as far as I can go to make it happen without actually saying I'll go and do it, or I'll pull you all into a room. It's kind of just throwing it out there. Now, let's be clear. Not everyone's going to like that approach, receiving it that way. But there are others who are just like, oh my God, thank God you thought of that. And, thanks for kind of pointing me in the right direction. So again, that old adage of you can't please everybody all of the time. But if it works for me and it works for the company, it gets us going where we want to go, then I kind of figure it kind of works, for now, in what we are.
And just on that, do you have like quite a two-way relationship, as in you're receptive to feedback and there's a discussion about something, and it might be that actually we took an approach, but perhaps we could do it differently?
Yeah, of course they do. Yeah, I mean, I've grown up in a program world. Nothing goes to plan, does it? Let's be clear. Anyone that tells you they've set out a business case and it's going to be perfect all the way through the 2 or 3 years is kidding themselves.
Yeah.
And my life having to course correct and tweak and be nimble. And
Yeah, I mean, thinking about that is a really good environment to grow up in, isn't it? Because you've got to be very adaptable, stay focused on the outcome, but be very adaptable and robust, because people get, it's a tough journey. Yeah, people get quite emotional and
look, it's a very unpredictable world that is in effect boxed into something called a business case that everyone believes should be 100% accurate, even though you wrote it on a certain day, week, month, quarter, years ago, without knowing all of that. And so, I mean, you have to be, to use that other term, you have to be very, very resilient. You have to be prepared to be bawled out by people along the way, and they're not meaning it personally. It's just business, and you've got to turn that program, in a slightly different direction to get around whatever the problem statement is. And so you build all of those skills up over the years, and you then got to overlay human behavior on top of it, haven't you? Because as you said, you don't know what's going on in someone else's fuller world rather than just world. And you don't know how they're feeling, whether they're tired or anything else. So the whole motivation and resilience and everything else, it's all bundled in together. And even collaboration. There are times when people just want to be left alone to get on a jam. Oh, don't want to collaborate. And there's nothing wrong with it. But you've got to work out. You've got to be able to read the room, if we say that, but in people's minds.
Yeah.
Around what's right for that particular situation. There are times where you will override stuff. There is times when, you said, people should come to me and say, no, we're not doing that. We're going to do it, in an entirely different way. And again, there's no issue there. We'll have a healthy debate about it. You'd expect that, given the nature of what we all do. I mean, but no, I'm no more right than anyone. I'm not sat here with the answer book or the playbook. I just have a way of approaching it. That's not to say my way is always the right one.
And any steps that you've taken in Project One that have helped that? Any quick steps that you sort of introduced when you started or along the way that have actually helped all of those things that you've talked about there to come into place?
There's certain things that I think there's certain things we introduced 6, 7, 8 years ago now, when we kind of went through Project One version 1.0 and moved into Project One version 2.0, and you can call that kind of, I think we were 18 years old at the time. And I kind of, the kind of story I built it around was, if in your real world, you've just finished your A-levels, you're off to university, you've got 3 years to kind of learn a little bit of independence. And when you come out, you want to be a bit more professional. You want to kind of grow up and work out what you want to do in life. And we definitely went through that. And part of that was bringing in better management software so that we can actually see what's going on in the business. And obviously the business was growing year on year on year. And therefore it helped. But that then centered people around, in effect, a dashboard with 12 tiles on it. And that dashboard still exists today with those same 12 tiles on it. And everyone can drill down into it. And therefore management information is key to everybody knowing what's going on. Now that then means you've got to change people's behaviors, because it's one thing to have it available. It's another to get them to use it and understand it, in anger. That part, definitely. I'd go back to the one I said earlier, which is do the basics and do the basics well. So in our world, nothing will beat sitting down face to face with either a customer or a prospective customer and talking to them about their problems, their needs, our solutions, our proposition, and actually building a relationship that's then based on trust over the years. And therefore getting, particularly in these quieter times, getting people to get out from behind these screens and actually get to see someone and having a coffee and, being humans, and has been a real centerpiece for how you kind of keep morale up, how you keep motivating, how you keep that collaboration going, because the conversation is far deeper, far more rounded. The opportunities that present themselves in those conversations are very, very different to the ones you'd get on a half an hour Teams call. And therefore you can go back to that world of, okay, so when you go back next time, take Stuart, take Estelle, take Alessia with you, have a conversation about this, take them that particular piece of collateral. Have you thought about introducing them to this other customer who's, in a different industry, but gone through the same journey over the last 3 years, and really bring it to life? So being more human rather than, here's a case study, let me email it to you. Take dividends. And I think that Latin one of bringing customers together, whether it's for dinner, lunch, coffee, a chat, it doesn't really matter. But actually, they can then hear it from their own peer group. And it's not us saying, oh, didn't we do a great job? It's just like, just ask those guys what they thought,
what they thought,
whether it's about the solution, whether it's about how, in the much bigger scale, it landed inside their organization. So again, be human, bring it to life, be normal, do the basics well, do them continuously, and you won't go far wrong.
Yeah. So that building the relationship and putting the time in, as in it takes a little bit of time to build up the trust.
Yeah.
But keep nurturing it, and at the point in time when the timing's right, it will happen.
Yeah, I mean, don't put it in the context of, we're a boutique. We're not a big six. We're not a big SI. We're not a brass plate. We don't have a global name. We've got a wonderful reputation, in the market. Yes, we're technically UK based, but also we work with some of the biggest companies in the world that happen to be HQs in the UK, but we work all the way around the world for them or with them. And the only way we can build that kind of reputation in those type of companies is on trust. And it's about doing exactly what we say we'll do, which is lead those programs. Again, whether it's the program management aspect, whether it's the change management aspect, the business change side, whether it's the control and governance aspect, whether it's all three or one of, or a combination of, it matters not. But we do that and that only, and we do it really, really well. And that way it keeps that relationship, that trust, that depth going year after year after year. And then your customer, who could be a C-suite, could be a CIO, a COO, a CFO, clearly they've got lieutenants, and therefore as they're coming up through their journey, they also see you and work with you and get to know you. And whether they stay there or go somewhere else, again, they're your futures. And all of it, though, is based on personal relationships. We are not going to just to be sat there emailing people. No one can ring in and say, oh, glad to get hold of you, James. Can I have a team of, 10 tomorrow morning? That's not our world. Our world is building proper relationships based on real stories, real outcomes, but also being open and honest, talking about the stuff that doesn't go well, talking about the trouble these programs get into, not just sugarcoating it, explaining that if you're doing an SAP S/4HANA implementation, the data migration from the old world is the hardest part. The data cleanse that you've got to do is your responsibility for the customer, not the SI's responsibility.
Yeah.
And so getting into that level of detail brings it to life for them, where they're like, all right, turns out I hadn't really thought too much about it. We should take care of it. And all of that helps. As you said, you don't have to be working with them to build trust. It can just be I don't mind if we work with you or not. I'll still tell you the same story, and I'll still introduce
a bit of insight. Yeah.
You said that's our IP, I guess, isn't it? It's war stories, scar.
Yeah.
History.
And just on that then, a specific challenge that you and the team have faced that has been really tough, and you've really had to, step back a little bit and really think about, we're in a bit of a corner here, perhaps. How are we gonna tackle that, and then sticking with it, really picking on all the points that you've mentioned.
I think nothing is more relevant than the time between 2022 and now. So the last 2 years, the trading years of 23 and 24, and you've got to think of you come out of COVID, There's a massive spike in the back end of 2022 where everybody get on with programs that they hadn't been able to do during the COVID times. You then have massive interest rate climb, massive inflation climb, and literally the change and transformation world ground to a halt. Put that into context. Anything that was running continued to run, still does run today for those that are the long-term ones. But the thing that fundamentally changed is no new stuff. There's no big programs coming out of the ground. Now, if you think of just the consulting industry in the UK and how many heads there are in the businesses, particularly, you go from the big end, look at the big four. You've only got to look at how many people have been laid off from the consulting industry in the UK alone, out of your Deloitte's, your Accentures, your PwCs of this world, to know how much it's hurt everybody, how much it's impacted everybody. And that doesn't matter if you're their size or if you're our size. There's a scale to it. Yes, there's a different set of numbers to it. But ultimately, we're all geared to run our own business at the same level. And therefore, how do you motivate the team? Let's take it from the angle of the sales team. How do you motivate the sales team to still want to go out and build those relationships, to have those coffees, to actually know that the sales numbers are not going to be the same, and therefore the revenue numbers are not going to be the same? Now, go back to what I said, do the basics and do the basics well. Because when the market reopens, the people that the customers will want to go and talk to is the ones that they've enjoyed talking to over the last 2-year period when it's all been quiet. The ones that they've kind of enjoyed, not just the coffee, but the content of what it was you're talking about. And therefore, I think over-indexing on that over the last 2 years, it's been worth its weight in gold. It's not very motivating though, is it? To go out and all the time giving up the art of the possible, but not necessarily, securing something. But you have to do it. And therefore, again, you're forever taking people back to those core messages. We're on a journey. The world's on a journey. World's in an oscillation at the moment. It's down at the bottom of the trough of the wave, but it's going to come back out. How long do most recessions, Badger is one of those, how long do they generally last? Look what's happening to interest rates even at the moment. Where will they be in 12 months' time? We know that the customers are already writing their 2025 kind of schedule of works. Therefore, that's the conversation at the moment, isn't it? What are you all planning on if the world rights itself? If interest rates come down to this and you want to borrow, what program would you do first? What's your prioritization? What help do you need? And you piece it together with them. Now, to link back to your point, guess what? They don't have a massive sounding board as C-suites in companies either. So they love the fact that they get to talk to someone of a similar age and experience who can have a very grown-up conversation. And they often go, I hadn't thought about that. I hadn't thought about that. That's good. I know that bit. I've got this bit over here. I can plug that in there. And so it's valuable to them in exactly the same way as you asked me, who do I talk to if I want to challenge something, if I want to kick something around without worrying about doing it in their own internal world. So the last 2 years have been tough. I think they've been tough for everyone, no matter what your industry. I have my little YouTube fix on a weekend, and I watch varying shows, that I've watched every week for years. I've got one in the aggregates industry. I've got a couple in cars. I've got a couple in watches, but I watch the ones that kind of talk to their business and how it operates, not the product side. And all of them, are talking about obviously the same position. Their revenue is down. Their cash flow is down. They've got challenges. They've got teams. Some have had to let people go. Some have had to stop certain parts of their business and focus on others. And so it's great to kind of see and realize that you're not in it on your own. You're not going through this, alone. Everybody is, but you've got to get out and talk about it. Don't go out and shit it. Go out and have honest conversations with even other people in the industry. And tell them how you're feeling. Tell them what you're not giving away any trade secrets. You're not saying, you're in desperate need. It's just it's a sounding board.
Yeah. And from an adaptability perspective, have you adapted your offer? Have you adapted the way that Project One will work with clients, or is it literally just waiting for that moment on a basis of strong relationships and trust and credibility to the point in time when things will improve? You'll be at the front of the queue, so to speak.
There's a bit of both. So we're not arrogant enough just to sit back and kind of wait. You can't.
Yeah.
You got to keep being out there in the market and active and present in the market. We took it, in a sensible way. We took our time for a couple of months in the middle of all of this to sit back and go, right, is the proposition still right? Is it still fit for today's market and for the future market? The world getting all excited about AI. Are we AI? No. Are we ever going to be AI? No, that's not our space. And therefore you come back to doing the basics. We know that we're PPM, CM, and control and governance. And we kind of centered back on those. Now, we then refreshed the proposition and the proposition decks, the value proposition, just to make it a little bit more current. We made sure that all of those little case studies from a thumbnail perspective were all, the best they could be, really did focus in on the outcomes that the customers wanted. Well, that's the tweaking that we talked about earlier when you start looking at kind of that agile world. It's how do you keep tweaking around the edges and making sure that you are doing absolutely everything. Because in a boom market, you don't have time, do you? You're too busy.
You just keep doing,
the next thing. So in effect, you've got to look at it from a positive point of view. Okay, we've had a little bit of time, we've got a little bit of capacity that we can use to make sure that it's spot on. Because at the moment, the world is reopening. One of our biggest customers for the last 15 years, who has kind of been, let's say, closed for business for the last 18 months, has just kind of come back and gone, right, the first big finance transformation is starting. We want you guys running it. And off you go. But what they want is, or the conversation is very clear, which is, money is not what it was. It's even more important to us than it used to be. Therefore, we've got to make sure that we get absolutely squeeze the pips out of this thing. Therefore, be really clear as to what you've done, how you've done it, what you've got for other customers, what we would expect, what we can get. It's exactly what we've been able to do, is bring that refreshed proposition together with that conversation. And therefore, you're straight back into it. Oh, great, brilliant. Glad you've already thought about it. Can we get going?
Yeah. You're ready to go. Yeah.
Ready to go.
Great. And through all of that time, I know you touched on this already, but from a motivation perspective and an engagement, keeping the team engaged, how have you done that? What are the key things that you've found to be effective in keeping people feeling positive, even though it has been a tough time?
Be out there. Well, number one. So I don't sit in this home world. I do.
Yeah.
We give them at most. I am out and about with people. I'm a people person. I want to talk. I love to talk. I love to gossip. And, just go and do a lot of coffee. I dread to think how many coffee receipts I've got from the year. And it doesn't matter whether it's grabbing them for 2 minutes or 5 minutes in between, their own busy day, or whether you get half an hour over a sandwich with them, or whether you catch them at the end of the day, when everyone else is gone. Just sit down and talk to them, because we're all clever people. We all know what the world's doing, but every now and again, you just need to hear it. And I think the worst thing you could do is silence. I think that silence is the killer for anybody, isn't it? It doesn't matter news. You can process news because it's just fact. But silence, you can't do anything with. You start making up your own version.
You make assumptions, don't you? It could be this, it could be that, but it's just wasted time.
And again, in the same way, there's no question I won't answer. They literally can ask anything they like as a team, as individuals, and I will happily talk to it and answer. They may or may not like necessarily the answer, but I will to it and contextualize it around the why for that particular answer. Again, we're a slightly different operating model, so our utilization is kind of around 90%, which is different to a lot of consultancies with big pyramids, and therefore we're fortunate in that our team are always busy. They're out working performance-centered programs that can outrun oscillations in the macroeconomy. Of course, you'd always like it to be better. Of course, there are people on a bench. The people on a bench in the consulting world, particularly when you've got the high-performing kind of workaholic program leaders, it's not good for them. They don't sit at home watching Hayes Under the Hammer very well. They are twitchy and get back to work, and so they're kind of chomping at the bit for, come on, what's next? Where are we going? What are we doing? And that's probably the harder element to manage, because as I said, the ones who are out working are they just get on with all of it. the world goes on around them, they're just doing their thing for their client. I mean, so it's managing by exception, isn't it? It's going back and smaller cohort that are not in that fortunate position, and how do you keep them motivated, and how do you find them things to do? And it's not just when you were younger and you were a junior, you did whatever you were told to do, didn't you? It didn't matter how big, bad, or ugly it was. When you're of a certain age, you don't do that. That's not that wouldn't be useful to anybody. It's about finding stuff that tests their brain.
Can add value.
Yes, correct. Yeah. And taking them along to meetings with you, getting them out of their houses, they still feel that they're adding that value and they've got a contribution to make. And so it's interesting times, isn't it? At the moment. Yeah. As I said, we all know things are already changing. Here in the UK, we've kind of swapped government. We've had our budget. We know kind of now what the stall looks like. We know what interest rates are going to do. Maybe it's not as much as we were hoping, but they're still going in the right direction. The US election, obviously, this week. So again, we know what 25 and beyond is going to look like over there, and we've got a fair view of what their economy will do. And then it just rolls around the world, doesn't it? A lot of the firms we all work for are big globals. They're global brands, and therefore, they just follow a very simple pattern. The programs that we work on are global programs. You can't roll it out into a country or a region. It's
no
around the world.
Yeah. Just have you got a strong why at Project One?
Yes. So ours has always been, and I know they always sound a bit cliche, don't they? The thing we've always centered around is delivering real change that makes a real difference for our customers and their customers. And the key thing is the end customer. Yeah. Clearly along the way, there's a whole bunch of colleagues that are impacted by that change, that change will happen for them as well, and things will improve. But it's all about, in effect, one or other form of customer experience. Doesn't matter whether you're working for an airline, for a CPG, for a defense customer, for an energy customer, there's always an end customer. And ironically, in our own day-to-day lives, in our home lives, we're probably their customer. And therefore, it's really easy for us to center around that and not get caught up with, oh, look, it's an SAP S/4HANA implementation, because that means absolutely nothing to anyone.
Yeah.
What is it going to do for their business? What efficiency can it bring in? How do you make sure they get the best bang for their buck? Because there aren't many companies that can go out and afford to buy best of breed all of the time for every single part of their business and continuously put in the latest version. And therefore, you've got to be able to build a matrix of stuff that's overlapping both horizontally and vertically. And our job is to try and make that as simple as possible. I'm a firm believer that no matter how many scenarios I've been into where people say, we don't know if this can be done, that, chuck a bunch of people in a room with a whiteboard and a bunch of pens for a period of time, you will come up with a sensible answer. You just got to break it down. But that's where you come back to, you need different people with different skills. My brain is all wired to pictures. I'll give you a big 100-page Word document and I'm a nightmare. I'll still be stuck on page 1 in a week. Yeah. But if it's all picture orientated, then it just works. And so our why has always been around that, really. It's about, focusing on the end and but also the fact that it's a journey. And therefore, you're not building a final version. It's a transition state. Whether it's here for 10 years or 2 months, it doesn't matter, does it?
No.
And that AI stuff at the moment is a perfect example of it, isn't it? I mean, it is developing at a rate of knots.
It is, yeah.
It's really scary. I mean, and whilst everyone is all excited from a marketing point of view and all want to talk about it, does he know what to do about it? In reality, there is a whole bunch of stuff that's got nothing to do with AI. There's a whole bunch these businesses do that is just, you could just say, boring. And it's the boring stuff that actually makes it work for the customer at the far end.
So to your point, I mean, the AI won't build the relationship. You need those relationships. The people bit is really critical.
Yeah.
And
Well, people buy people at the end of the day. And remember, you're selling something. The world is not. And therefore, anyone that says they're not in sales is not quite telling the truth.
Yeah.
And as you said, it's all about relationships. It's all about trust. It's all about long term as well, isn't it? You don't want to have to keep spinning around the same conversation, with a potential new customer every day, every week, every month, every year.
Yeah.
You want to build those relationships that survive the test of time and percolate down through organizations. And as I said, the world is very different to 20 years ago. A lot of my customers move not just from organization to organization, but from industry to a different industry. And that would not have been in the past.
No.
You've got to be able to operate in that world where you can kind of, one, go with them, but two, also make sure that whatever they leave behind is also set up for success, so that their success inherits.
Inherits that, yeah. There's a key point there, actually, isn't it? So you don't want them to leave a mess behind. It's another challenge for someone coming into that role or into that position.
And part of that, go back to my role as a CEO, and my people person, and I'm out there, is that I'm trying to be a little bit of glue. I'm trying to bring the conversations around all the different industries. Personally, I started out with 20 years in banking. And back then you kind of went, okay, I'm a banking guy, I kind of get it. And then you stayed in that. And then I kind of went to this world where it's like, okay, well, you find yourself in telco going, I know nothing about telco. And they're going, well, do you have a mobile phone, a landline, a TV? No. Yes, like, good. You know all about telco. Now, do you know anything about transformation? And you're like, well, yeah, of course I do. I know all of this. And they're like, good, because that's totally all we're interested in. We want the transformation side. And so it's learning as you grow, as you get older, that you can be of big value to people, even when you think initially that you can't. Yeah. Change is change, or transformation, whichever label you want. The world, go back 20 years, the world was very much we do BAU, and every now and again we do change and or transformation. The world nowadays is we do change and transformation and
transformation. Yeah.
It's on, forget whether the titles are now, overused. There is no BAU. There is constant change. There is constant disruption. Therefore, change fatigue is a real thing, which links back into your motivation. How do you keep people, motivated when all they're doing is just like, and another thing, and another thing, and another thing, and another thing. Yeah. And they're all crashing in together. Which then takes you back to your messaging. How do you message about that? How do you keep people understanding what that roadmap looks like? How do you actually get them to understand that there is a sequence that we're all following? And if you miss your slot, it's not just a case of, well, don't worry, come back later. You might have to wait quite a while. And therefore you just go the other way and go, you have to make that slot. And which puts more pressure on, which again goes back to how do you motivate? So it's I think it's a very simple word, but I do understand it's also a very complex world. But I guess when you've done it for 20, 30 years, it's no different to lawyers knowing everything about the law and accountants knowing everything about it. Submissions.
Yeah, it's a good, very strong model to apply to everything, isn't it? Getting that direction, building your team and getting them aligned to it, making the right decisions, connecting, and then that continual development, that continual adaptability, adapting and pivoting. They're quite simple, but very, very complex as well. That if you apply that to it, it's sort of underpins what you need to do.
Yeah, very logical. As I said, if you stick to your knitting, work on knitting,
yeah,
you won't go far wrong. That's not to say that you might have to pivot at some point in time. The world can fundamentally change. Talk to Kodak, talk to Blockbuster. Yeah, there are plenty of examples. You've got to know when enough is enough, but at the same time, don't just keep jumping every second. No point. You will confuse people, and confused people just think, oh, I can't be dealing with this. I'll go somewhere else. So, let it play out, let it run. Over communicate, and people at least know where you are, where you're going, and what you're trying to achieve.
That's great, James. I'm just conscious of time, and it's a good one to finish on that. It's been, first of all, anything else that you want to add to that, or you?
No, I think we've covered a lot of ground there, haven't we, really?
Yeah. gone through some big topics. It's been really, really great to have you here today, and certainly shared a lot with me. Given me a lot to think about, so I really appreciate that. I'll just say to anyone listening, if you want to reach out to contact James with any questions on the back of today, James's details will come up at the end of the podcast. Also, if you want to register for the next podcast, there's a number coming up. So just again, reach out to me, contact, and equally, if you've got any questions about coaching, my details will come up at the end, and I'll be delighted to get back to you and answer any of those questions. But thanks to everybody. Thanks again, James. Have a great day, and hope to speak to you soon. Take care. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Leadership and Lead podcast. I hope you found value in today's conversation and are inspired to take action on your own journey. To dive deeper, I invite you to complete the Leadership Self-Assessment. This is a powerful tool designed to help you gain insight into your strengths, identify areas for growth, and take the next step in your personal and professional development. You can access the assessment directly by scanning the QR code on the screen or visiting stellacoach.co.uk/self-assessment. And don't forget to follow our guests. You'll find their contact information below to learn more about their work and insights. And of course, if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to the Leadership and Lead podcast for more inspiring conversation. And I'll look forward to seeing you in the next episode as we continue to unleash your potential.